بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So let's continue here from where we were last time. Just to give a very brief recap, let's go here. We spoke about all the different dimensions of Arabic. And I think the summary of the last lecture and really the introduction to this mini course of lectures is that we need to think of Arabic not just as a form of communication. It's not just a language which people speak, but this is a divine interface. It's a divine interface of pure consciousness. In Arabic, one word I'm going to start to use a lot is al-ma'ani. In fact, let me connect my tablet up as well. I mean, ma'ana translates, I suppose, as meaning, meanings, but it really means much more than that. The idea of a meaning is like the Platonic idea of an archetype, the ideal form of something, the pure spiritual essence which underlies a thing. That is what Arabic is. The words of the Arabic language are pure meanings. That, Arabic is a cosmic language. It's not just a language on earth, it's the language of heaven. It is the language of God. And I spoke about the deep meaning of al-Arabiya. This is even the root letters and what they connote. I went through all the different dimensions and emphasized that the linguistic dimensions, the communicative dimensions, are merely the first level. And really, it is such a shame that we mostly ignore the other dimensions and live our entire lives at this most surface level. If even that, if we even learn Arabic, but there are so many more deeper and deeper levels. In fact, it goes to the very utmost depth of reality, where understanding the Arabic language is a pure form of communion. I use this word gnosis to truly meditate upon the meanings of the Arabic language. And we meditate and commune with these pure archetypal meanings through the practices of prayer, worship, recitation, meditation, right? All of which are fundamentally founded upon Arabic. If we are doing, reading the Quran, of course, that's clearly Arabic. If we are engaged in dhikr, saying Subhanallah or La ilaha illallah, the essence of this is Arabic. So learning Arabic very deeply is that path to very deeply communing and connecting with God. And that is the ultimate purpose behind all of this. It is that divine connection, communion. One beautiful word which we will see a bit in Arabic is munajat. Munajat is deep, intimate, mystical converse. The deepest way that you can converse with someone else, where it's not even a conversation, it's just pure connection. That is what we are being called towards in prayer. And maybe to introduce this lecture on a spiritual note, we call it salah, right? Nusalli, as-salah. We translate salah ordinarily as prayer. But what is the root meaning of salah? In fact, I can put it over here, maybe. Just 1 second, it should be, yes. The root letters of as-salah are, there's a sad, there's a lam, and the last letter is a ya. And I'm going to speak about this when it comes to lexicology. But there's an entire internal logic to the letters of the Arabic language. The letters themselves have meanings. The kernel letters of this root are these two over here. That is the sad and the lam. And this is therefore very deeply related to the word. If I add a wow there, you get wow, sod, lam. Wasl, wasala. This means connection. So the root meaning of salah is connection. Salah is this connection, communion with God, with the absolute. At least that is what it has the potential to do. Whether we make use of that potential or we don't is up to us. But we are being called towards mystical communion, understanding, gnosis, full realization of the divine reality, of knowing God at this intimate level. I think one spiritual saying is that as-salatu mahallul mukallamati wal munajat. That salah is the locus of intimate conversation and mystical communion. Now, this, I called this the keys to Arabic because my intention, if God accepted from us, is that this is a key to open these deeper spiritual, metaphysical, and mystical dimensions of the Arabic language. But what I'm going to speak about today in particular are these grammatical dimensions. So that goes all the way back to essentially this linguistic surface level. But I want to try to open up this surface level as much as possible so that we can dive the ocean. I will begin with بعد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. تسبح له السماوات والأرض ومن فيهن وإن من شيء إلا يسبح بحمده ولكن لا تفقهون تسبيحهم إنه كان حليما غفورا. That all the heavens and the earth sing the praises of God. Behold, all things sing the praises of God, but you cannot perceive their song. ولكن لا تفقهون تسبيحهم. And I've translated tasbih here as the idea of to hymn, to sing, to praise. All these meanings are contained in this idea. Also in the idea of tasbih, in fact, we say subhanallah so many times, but when we are never taught what we are actually saying, it derives from this word, subuhat. The subuhat are the august glories, the infinite beauties of God. So when we do tasbih, when we say subhanallah, it is as if we are swimming, in the ocean of divine beauty. And in fact, the word sabaha, right? Sabaha, sibaha, literally means to swim. So there's this very fluid meaning of swimming, immersing, being completely drowned in the ecstasy of witnessing the infinite myriad beauty of God. This is tasbih. Everything was created for tasbih. And I've begun with this quote because this language, really the very heart of language, is to do tasbih. The purpose of all communication is tasbih. There is no true communication, but that it is to hymn the glory of God. That is the essence of language. And the problem is that we think that worship is something that you can do with language. But it's the other way around. It's not that worship is something which can be done inside of language. Worship is first. Everything was created for worship. That is the ultimate telos of everything. Language is a modality of worship. That's why everything yusabbihu, hymns, sings the praises of God. Everything, not just we. If we do really, we worship God the least after we created things, but the heavens and the earth, all the celestial spheres, the planets, plants, rocks, minerals, every single thing which exists has a life, has a consciousness, it has a spirit, it has its own form of worship. It sings its own unique song, which are all equally beautiful. Now, to learn Arabic deeply is to learn this tasdeeq. The more deeply we can hear and comprehend Arabic, and I mean the spiritual al-Arabiya, al-Ma'ani, the more we can comprehend these infinitely subtle meanings which are contained inside of the Arabic letters, meanings which are contained between the Arabic letters, in these unspoken spaces of silence, then we can begin to actually hear and comprehend this cosmic song, which is the pure worship of God. And what is interesting is that we have this word, tafqahun, from fiqh. Fiqh might mean to us law or something like that, but really that's a deep misunderstanding and mistranslation. Fiqh in the Quran means one thing, it means deep understanding. Not just understanding. The qaf has a general meaning of kind of cutting or penetrating into a thing. Like qaf, cuts, is a very strong qaf sound. The tha has a general meaning of opening something up, like fat, to open, miftah, key, furja, a hole, fajwa, a gap. The tha has a meaning of openness. So there's a cutting, there's an opening, and there's the ha at the end. That ha is this incomprehensible ipseity, like the huwa, God, Allah, right? Is the ha at the end. We say kun. We have kun, the ha at the end. This means the very, very inmost essence of a thing. So fiqh is to cut, to open up, and to go into the very inmost, hidden center of a thing. Therefore, to understand it in its utmost depth. This is what we are called to do. This is what we deign to learn by studying deeply the Arabic language. So to attain by the will of God. Fiqh. So to attain deep understanding, comprehension, spiritual perception, by which we can understand this cosmic harmony and symphony where all things sing God in a perfect chorus and unison. And we can partake in that we can truly inhabit our salah, which is not just a particular action we do at a particular time of day, but actually salah, in this meaning of connection, is a state of being which we inhabit all the time. So I mentioned this, that language ultimately is not just communication. Because communication is some movement from A to B, right? You are person A, you are the subject, you're speaking to another person, to the object. You see, this entire paradigm is a paradigm of duality. This sounds like a simple thing, but what is our cosmology? What does it mean to have Iman at a deep level? Ultimately, the utmost central principle is Tawheed. This is a cosmological principle. Tawheed. When we say that God is one, that the absolute truth is that God is one. This is not just a theological principle, because, I mean, theology is not just theology. This is the supreme principle, which therefore underlies and subtends all things. What we are saying when we say, La ilaha illallah, is that unity is the ultimate reality. That every duality ultimately arises from a unity. So the reality of language is not this duality of communication from A to B, but the utmost reality, the kun, if I can use this word again, the fiqh of language is unity. Where there is self-communication. And that is perhaps what we mean by communion. Communication is to go from A to B. When we speak about communion, we mean to become one with the very thing. This is that mystical idea of ego annihilation, that servitude, the meaning of servitude, al-ubudiyya, is to become annihilated. Not just to serve with the body, which means the body is subservient to higher principle, but to serve with the mind, to serve with the spirit, to serve with our very essence of being, which is to surrender our essence to God, to become nothing and acknowledge that the oneness of God is the true reality, that everything else dissipates. كالهباء في الهواء, to use an Arabic phrase, like dust, like specks of dust in air. That is what everything is in front of God. So language at this deepest level is communion with the absolute realities of things. To speak a word is not just to try to communicate an idea to someone else, but notice that when we are alone, when we are thinking, when we are engaged in pure thought, especially in the salah, when we are utterly alone, we speak, not to speak to someone else, not to be heard, but to commune with thought itself. We speak to God. Why? God knows what we are going to say before we speak it. It's not a communication, it's a communion. And that's why we speak ideally what God speaks, to become one with the word of God, because that is closeness, that is unity, to become one with the word of God, which he has revealed his word. And I will add here that this connection really is this connection between symbols and what symbols symbolize, the meanings. To give a very great example, right? There's the symbol of this word which we speak and say, Allah. It's a symbol. In and of itself, this is a sound which we articulate, a word which we are taught. But of course, what is the reason why we speak this word is because it symbolizes something. In fact, it symbolizes that utmost and greatest thing beyond all things. This is language. It is to commune with meanings. It is for the symbol to become one with the thing that it symbolizes. So we speak these symbols, we speak these words of the Quran, but we speak them so to become one with their meanings, to become and realize their meaning. That is why it was said that the Prophet, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he was the Quran. كان القرآن يمشي. It was as if he was the Quran walking, because he had become one with the very essence of the Quran. He had communed with these meanings and therefore had become these meanings. This is what language is, truly. Not just communication, communion, in one simple sentence. So now, we understand language as this communion with meanings, ma'ani. I'll even write it down because this is a word we are going to see many, many more times. Al-ma'ani. But we have symbols. Now, if we think of a meaning and what it is, for instance, let us contemplate upon the meaning of beauty and think, what does it mean? What is beauty? We might see some examples of beautiful things in our minds, some beautiful landscapes, beautiful flower, the moon, the night sky. These things themselves are beautiful. But what is beauty itself? What is the reality of beauty? Moreover, what is the experience of beauty? If you look at a beautiful work of art, we can appreciate certain aspects and dimensions which are beautiful. Its texture, its colors, its detail, its composition. But the very experience of beauty is not found in any of these parts. It's found in just the unity of the experience. Even likewise, the reality of beauty is not contained or delimited in a particular example of a beautiful thing. What I mean is that we have this meaning, we have this reality, but then you have all these forms, these particular things, which we call beautiful. All these things are symbols of this reality, of this ma'na of beauty. Now, to give actually some theology here, if you study theology, you might know that we have the idea of the names of God, the 99 names. To give an example, there are actually infinitely many. We speak of the names which are the asma and wasifat. Ta'ala Allahu amma yasifun, as the Quran says. And God is exalted. He is above, Ta'ala, from amma yasifun, from what they describe him to be. The idea that God has attributes, sifats, but nothing like what human beings can imagine. God has asma, names, and sifats. Really, we can call them the same things. They are name attributes. For example, that he is merciful, that he is beautiful, that he is sublime, majestic, great, powerful, mighty. What are these names and what are these attributes? They are ma'ani. And that's the answer over here. What is beauty? What is the reality of beauty? What is this overarching archetype by which things are beautiful? This one reality, which subtends all the instances of infinitely many possibilities of beauty, this unity, this ma'na is God. In fact, the meaning of all things is God. The reality of all realities, by and through which each thing attains its particular reality, is God. Therefore, all of existence is language, actually, because Everything is a symbol of God. That's the summary of this. Everything is a symbol of God. Hence, the cosmos is spoken by God. It is made by the Word. The entire universe is a lattice of symbols, all pointing towards the one absolute reality, which is at the center. Now, where does Arabic fit into this? Well, as we see, there is like a declension of one meaning, ultimately the meaning and reality of God. There's a manifestation where the one reveals itself through the many. God is one, but he has many names. This is the declension from language, from meaning to symbol. If these meanings are given in language, what are the symbols given? Now that is why I've given this word. You might think, well, where is this coming from? The structure of meanings, right? The structure by which the one reveals itself in many forms. That is mathematics, and that is grammar. This is what grammar is. Grammar is the structure of meaning, by which meaning declines into symbols, by which singularity is become forms. So when we study Arabic language, Arabic grammar, we are studying the mathematics of existence. We are studying the language of the universe. It's like what Einstein did before him, even Galileo, so many physicists have said that mathematics is the language of the cosmos. That if we can study mathematics, we can understand God, we can understand the mind of God, because God created things using this language. Now, this is true. But this mathematics, what is it truly? What is this language? Every language is a language of God, without doubt. But the Arabic language is special, because the Arabic language, as I keep stressing, is not a man-made set of symbols. The Arabic language is not a set of symbols that we use to speak about meanings. The Arabic language is meaning. She is pure meaning become into form. Therefore, every single word, every sound, every letter, not just that, the acute, precise, morphological dimensions of the sound of a letter, its particular vibration, its frequency, its oscillation, that is a meaning. It is a pure meaning. The shape of the word, the fact that the bird has these two small curves at the end, that has a meaning. Every single part of this language is meaning, because it's not form. The Arabic language, she is not form, she is meaning. She is the language of the word of God, the language of God, meanings themselves. And I cannot stress this point enough, if it sounds like I'm being repetitive. It's because this reality is so profound. Like La ilaha illallah, we cannot say one day, I'm done with understanding. I've read it a million times, I'm done. We have to keep repeating it to understand it deeper and deeper, because its reality is unfathomable, incomprehensible, infinite. This entire deen is Arabic. All of this worship is Arabic. This Quran is Arabic. The Prophet is Arabic, not just an Arab, he is Arabic. The reality become into a human being. النبي الأمي العربي. right? This is a cosmological language, not confined to one particular place or time or people or culture. It's the universal, infinite language of everything. Now, going into a bit more detail, how can we learn Arabic grammar to, practically actually begin to imbibe some of these realities? So I'll give a small taste of this. First and foremost, we must understand that what I call this the grammatical diagram. Actually, the grammatical diagram, oh, there it is, lagged a bit. It is, I use the word diagram because it's like an entire map of interrelated sciences. This is a meta-science, a science of sciences. It's a nexus which consists of, like we might understand that, yes, there is some linguistics involved. We're learning a language. But if we take this seriously, and if you want to truly understand the inmost depth of Arabic, we have to also study mathematics. We have to study logic. There's other things I might mention, like semiotics, the study of signs and symbols. But really, I think they all are encompassed over here in these sciences. In particular, in the ancient conception of mathematics, that is the quadrivium, music was considered a part of mathematics. The study of harmonies and proportions, the meanings of sound, all of these form a diagram, a hierarchy, a landscape of interrelated sciences. Learning Arabic grammar is not about learning one or two books. I have to stress this, that this is an entire way of life. If you remember previously, I said that the Arabic language is not just spoken by the tongue. It is spoken by every single nerve in the body. The fingers can speak Arabic. The body can speak Arabic. That is what we do when we worship, when we raise our hands, when we bow ourselves down. This is a language which the body is speaking. This is the idea that the body will speak on the day of judgment, or rather the day of singularity. The body itself will speak. And I'm trying to remember the verse from Surah Yasin. وَالْيَوْمَ نَخْتِمُ عَلَى, I can't, it's going past my mind at the moment, so I won't try to quote it, but God will give speech unto the hands and unto the feet, unto the entire body. That is because, not because they're going to speak then, and they're not speaking now. Listen back to this. It's because they are already speaking. Everything is speaking, but it's us. لا تفقهون, لا نفقه. We do not understand and comprehend. Everything can speak this Arabic. So this is an entire way of life. To learn this Arabic, this cosmological spiritual Arabic, we have to learn to speak her, to become her, with every aspect and dimension of our existence. There's a saying in Arabic, العلم لا يعطيك بعضه حتى تعطيه كلك. That knowledge, al-ilm, will not give you يعطيك something, a part of it, بعضه, حتى, until تعطيه, that you shall give knowledge, كلك, all of yourself. You don't get a part of knowledge by putting a part in. If you want knowledge, anything, you have to give all of yourself. If we want to understand all these dimensions of Arabic, we have to study Arabic with every dimension of our own self. The spiritual, the mental, the physical, everything. Now, the next thing I'd like to add is that usually when we learn Arabic, there are two words which we're all familiar with, nahu and sarf. First and foremost, we have to understand that they're not two sciences. In fact, even this really, it's more than a science, it's a meta-science of sciences. But we have a full hierarchy of sciences that at the basic level, we should be familiar with all of these. We might have heard tajweed. We might understand tajweed to be the science of pronouncing the Quran or reading the Quran correctly. That it is, but why? That's the fruit, right? That's the purpose of the science. That does not tell us what the science is. At-tajweed is the science of phonetics. And in my opinion, I think we need to completely change the way that we teach tajweed. Tajweed is not about, reading a simple children's book in a mosque and walking back and forth and saying the same thing 100 times. Tajweed is a deep science. It's a science of phonetics. The science that every letter has a meaning. Tajweed should be to deeply, deeply, deeply learn and imbibe every letter of the Arabic language. In fact, you have orthography, the science of writing, learning the scripts, learning the meanings of why the alif is a vertical line, why the ba is a horizontal line. There are meanings to these things. We should learn orthography, learn phonetics, learn the alphabet, therefore, at this deep conceptual level. I would emphasize this is even more important for adults learning Arabic. Because you see, when you are young, a child, they will not necessarily need a theoretical explanation as to why they are doing this. Because they are more instinctive, more instinctual. They will pick things up. They are more innocent. They'll simply do what they are told. But I would highly advise people who are learning Arabic when they are a bit older to approach it from a more conceptual and theoretical level. I mean, if you can just memorize, that's great. But if you are attending classes which are nothing more than merely memorization and rote repetition, and it's not going in, it's not your fault. I'd say it's really the fault of the system, which is it's using a very inefficient way of teaching, and a way which is highly inappropriate for adult learners. In my opinion, even for children, as I said, I actually don't think that this rote learning should be done for anyone. Even children should learn these deeper meanings, at least as far as they are able to understand them. But regardless, this is the first science, phonetics. Learn the Arabic alphabet, how to write, how to pronounce, how to speak, how to recite. Learn its geometrical patterns, its musical intonations. Learn some calligraphy if you can. Learn some recitation, some singing, some musical scales for how to actually put this stuff together, because every language has its own internal logic of harmony. Al-maqamat literally means musical scales. It's a part of tajweed, learning the musical scales of Arabic. This is all part of that. Next is as-sarf. And there's a big debate, but there should not be. Should I begin with Nahu or Sarf? Okay, the true answer is neither, which we'll come to. But out of these, Sarf is fundamental. Sarf is the more fundamental, and Nahu is thereafter. I have a slide on the Nahu and Sarf, which I shall give. But what you really begin with is this. You begin here. You learn words, because the elements of language after letters are words. You learn letters, and then you learn words, at least a few hundred. You can learn the most common 200 words. In fact, there are, you might have seen very good Quranic dictionaries. Something like, the common most 80% words in the Quran, a frequency dictionary. That's great. I would recommend memorize that as soon as possible. Learn the basics of the alphabet. Learn the very, very basics you need of sarf to understand how words work. Now memorize the top 200 words. because you cannot learn nothing on sarf without knowing words. So lexicology is the first science and the last, because the truth is at some stage, though it seems far off, at some stage you're going to complete all of this. At some stage you have mastered phonetics, morphology, syntax. You have mastered all of these. Ultimately, they are finite, at least the principles are finite, though the branches are many. The roots, the usul of these sciences can be completely mastered. The one thing which you will never encompass, never fully satiate yourself of, is lexicology. Because this is the ocean of the Arabic language, the ocean without any shores. So step one, learn the alphabet. Step two, learn the words, the most common. Step three, master sarf. And I say master because sarf actually does not take that long to fully learn. Can be done in a month or two. Learn all the tables, and I will help with all of this. But sarf, as I shall say, is the fundamental structure. Sarf, to put it very simple, tells you, how does one thing become many? How does one become many? This is related to mathematics. 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. All number begins with 1, and all of mathematics ultimately resolves to the permutations of unity. All of mathematics is the ways of unity. That is the science of sarf. How does the one branch off into many things? How does the tree of Arabic from one root, from one seed, become all these roots, and from these branches become these many, or from the trunk become these many branches, and branching again? Every word is like this, where it has one principle which diverges and emanates into many branches. This is what the science of sarf ultimately is teaching us. This is why it is such a metaphysical science. Then there is the syntax, nahu. What are we studying here? Well, in fact, I'll speak about it on the next page. Very shortly, sarf tells you how letters become words and how words change. Right? We have letters. Morphology plus lexicology is words. Syntax is how do words become sentences, phrases, and sentences. So we have this hierarchy, a mathematical hierarchy. Letters into words, into phrases, into sentences. What do you do after sentences? Well, you put sentences together into paragraphs and stories. This is really the science of poetics. Poetics is actually not just a study of poetry, but Aristotle's Poetics is a very profound book. It's a book about literary theory in general. It's a book about how a story works. This is a part of grammar, I should emphasize. Grammar is not one of these. Grammar is all of this, plus more, which I haven't even mentioned. Grammar takes you from the letter, and it takes you all the way to the story. It takes you all the way to literary criticism and theory at the highest level. It takes you at its echelon into exegesis. That is tafsir and tadabburul Quran. That is the crown of them. They are the flowers in the tree of grammar. This culminates in deep understanding of the text, of the book, from the letter unto the book, from the root unto the entire cosmos. Right? Do we see how grammar is mirroring the process of creation? It is the language of the universe, the language of reality. the more we study grammar, the more we study these sciences, the more we comprehend the very unity of reality, the harmony of the cosmos, therefore the grand symphony of worship which all things are engaged in. Because the culmination of all of this, the culmination and realization of Al-Arabiya is Al-Qur'an Al-Arabi. Qur'anun Arabiyyun Mubin. I've mentioned here these advanced sciences. Really, actually, it's one hierarchy, but to tell the truth, I couldn't put it all into one row, so I separated it into two. So I'd emphasize it's all one stem. You have ulum al-balagha, again, very, very misunderstood. One of the most understudied and misunderstood sciences, which is really a travesty, and I'll have to give an entire lecture about this at some stage. People don't even know this exists, but there's fiqh al-lugha, the philosophy of language. Studying grammar is not just memorizing rules. A great portion of this is very theoretical, very mathematical. It's about how language works at a deep, deep, deep level. One thing I'll emphasize here, which you absolutely must study, is this, ma'ani al-nahu. This word, ma'ani, meanings. Al-nahu is structure. The ma'ani al-nahu means the meanings behind structures. When you study these things, you are learning how the structure of Arabic work and how you put things into new forms. That's not what learning grammar is. You don't just want to memorize rules. You want to learn the meanings behind these rules. So Ma'an al-Nahu is one of the most essential sciences. And actually the way I teach is that I take this science, which traditionally might be regarded as advanced, and I use this as a foundation for all of these. So I will actually bring in Ma'an al-Nahu into the very beginning of everything that we do. That is that. Those are the, well, it's not that, I can't say that. It's a very, very small taste of the diagram of the grammatical sciences, which inshallah we'll speak much more about. I'll just give one quick sentence about each of these. I think I was a bit ambitious wanting to give kind of a mini lecture, but really I think each one of these sciences deserves its own sub-lecture. It really deserves, of course, its own course. But to summarize, you begin with the letters. The letters are your 28 roots, right? 28 letters, 28 fundamental roots. This is mathematics. These roots come together to form, they're more than roots, they are proto-roots, form an asl, a root, which is 3 letters. You can pick any 3. For example, we're going to pick Ain, Lam, Mim. This root then comes down into a form, a mabna, a sigha. How it does that? That is part of sarf. But for example, one form is fi'l. If I put this into, it's like metal, right? I've melted down metal ore. Now I'm pouring it into some framework. I'm pouring this into the framework of fi'l, fi'lun, ilmun. So I know that this is a verbal noun. I'm going to put it into the form fa'ila, alima. This is a verb. In fact, people don't know, but there's another verb, fa'ala, alama, is another verb. They have different meanings. What is the meaning difference? I actually know just from the verb, fa'ila and fa'ala. These are all things you can learn in sarf, right? Plus ma'ana, ma'an is sarf. It's very important. Lexicology is a tree. The roots are coming into a trunk and is branching off into many, many words. Every root has, it's like its own encyclopedia. You have dozens, maybe hundreds of words which are derived from this root. You have alim, allama, alim, ulama, ma'lam, ma'alim, alama. There's so many words. This is true for every single word in the Arabic language. There is a root, and these roots come into other forms. But the point here is, we can talk about the specific later, but recall the metaphysical dimensions, recall the spiritual, mystical, ontological dimensions, the mathematical, the grammatical. I want you to try to see how it's all coming together, how studying the science of lexicology, therefore, is a study of the cosmos itself. I want people to now understand how studying lexicology can change their life, how this can be a spiritual realization, how this can lead on to gnosis and communion. Morphology, or sarf, I essentially explained that you have a root, and sarf is telling you how this root declines into forms, like the 2 or 3 which I mentioned over here. This is why sarf is really the first thing to be studied. You learn a basis of vocabulary, you learn the most important meanings, the most important roots, and now you begin to create words from them. You have the process of creating words. Then there is inflection, which is how words change. And really, this begins syntax. I could actually change the order of this. Derivation and then inflection. If people have watched my previous videos, which I would highly recommend, I speak more about this. I give some examples. Where, as for inflection, there are 2 things. On the noun side, we have declension, the 3 grammatical cases. On the verb side, you have conjugation, all the ways a verb can change. We simply learn this, first and foremost, because it doesn't take too long to learn. There's a few tables to memorize, and afterwards we are essentially done. Then we want to learn how to put words together into sentences. The deeper meaning of this is that nahu, we say nahu to nahwan, or nahwahu. It has the meaning of a way. And there's one story, a traditional story about the origin of nahu, where I can't remember which Sahabi it was, but essentially, I believe they came to Imam Ali radiallahu anhu, and they saw that there were the children of the companions did not have as a pure Arabic as the parents, because now they are spreading out. There are other people coming in. There are many dialects. There are now different peoples, Persians and so on. So this happens. Language deteriorates, but then it needs to be preserved. What that means is that one can no longer rely upon just receiving a pure nectarous Arabic from one's parents. One must study Arabic. Now imagine if this was true for the children of the companions. It must be true for everyone, right? I think that's a natural conclusion. Every single person must study Arabic. And in this sense, it is very beautiful because yes, some people might have a head start. They have an Arabic that they speak natively, but no one speaks Quranic Arabic natively. From that perspective, God has made it an equal playing field, all in all. And honestly, if you want to get to a high level, I don't think it makes much difference. Because let's say you have a 2-year head start. It takes, I think, maybe 2 years to become fluent in kind of informal Arabic. Well, it takes 20 to become fluent in Quranic Arabic, right? So it doesn't really make a difference whether you have a 2-year head start or not. I'd recommend everyone to not think about these things, but to simply dive in if that is what we intend. So as for syntax, Well, I mentioned it before that I won't get too much into it because it gets a tad more complex here, but we are now speaking about how words combine into phrases. And this really is very structural, it's very combinatorial, it's actually very mathematical. So I emphasize that those who are good at mathematics will be very good in Nahu, and really everyone should be good at mathematics to some degree, that there is no other way around this, to put it very shortly. There is no way to learning Arabic which at some stage will not require you to deeply understand the mathematics behind Arabic grammar. So my opinion is better to do it sooner rather than later. But what is very important is to approach it with this ma'nawi perspective in mind. This is something I greatly emphasize. We must begin with the ma'ani. We never ever begin with symbols. Because really that's shirk. To think about it, shirk is to begin with a symbol, to begin with an idol. But the mushrikeen really don't say that they're worshipping idols. They said that, we are worshipping God through the form of this idol. This is the danger of beginning with a symbol and not the meaning. It creates a huge corruption. We must begin with the meaning, and the symbol must serve the meaning, never ever the other way around. This is Tawheed. Meaning will never serve symbol. You will never change meaning because the symbol is there. That symbol could be a place, it could be a time. The symbol, the structure should never ever change the reality of a thing. So we begin with these realities, with these ma'ani, and we explain therefore, and therefrom, how these structures work. I think let's leave that there because I think we went quite deep, perhaps a bit complex, but what I really hope is that the landscape of Arabic and the interconnectedness of all these sciences is beginning to come together. So again, ask God that He teaches us this wondrous language, His language, from His very essence, that He pours the nectar of this pure comprehension of the mystery of every word and letter and meaning of the Quran into our hearts. اللهم علمنا من لدنك علما اللهم علمنا معاني العربية ومبانيها وعلمنا علوم القرآن وعلم كل حرف وآية وكلمة وعلمنا جوامع الكلم ومجامع الحكم وفواتحها وخواتمها اللهم اجعلنا عبادا لوجهك الكريم اللهم يا ربنا